Hello and welcome to Economic Forum, a program where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. These can be issues to do with tourism, with commerce and industry, agriculture, mining, and different facets of our economy. We discuss them here to see how they impact on our economic development. My name is John Masu. In recent years, the Treasury as well as the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe have been issuing various statements in order to help stabilize the economy. You recall the gold coins as well as the measures to do the value for money for those who supply government services and many others. But most recently, on the 2nd and on the 29th of May, Treasury, which is the Ministry of Finance, issued other measures to stabilize the economy. And these are the ones that we're going to unpack and see what impact they're having on our economy. And to do that, we've invited an economist, Zvikomborero Spanda, who is going to be looking at them, unpacking them so that they are simple to all of us and whether they are having any value or any impact on our economy. Zvikomborero, welcome to Economic Forum.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
Yeah.
First and foremost, this number of measures. Couldn't we have just one measure or the budget itself or the one statement that could have covered everything in order to stabilize our economy? Because we are now almost seeing them as a trend every other month.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging. It's more like issues around policy making, John, where we are saying some would prefer a big bang approach, some would prefer a piecemeal approach. And over these few years, we've seen that the Treasury and the Reserve Bank have been taking more sort of a piecemeal approach towards addressing. That's why we've been seeing time and over again a new set or new tranche of economic measures.
You're using the word piecemeal. Are you saying, is it because of the prevailing situation that makes it difficult just to make one statement instead of having these plenty?
Yeah, it's more like you're trying to address our economy is facing so many challenges. So let's understand that we're already facing limited fiscal space, and people's confidence with the Zimbabwean dollar is going low. So trying to have a one policy at once, try to address, it becomes challenging because the initial conditions were not stable. So that's why we are seeing time and over again they're issuing new measures to try to address. So some they're saying it's more like reactionary. Others, that's the other views of other people saying the government is more like sort of reactionary, that it reacts after effect. But to me, I think it's something like policy making. There are lags in policy making. You don't have to just implement overnight. So it should be a gradual process.
Okay.
Yes.
One thing we noticed before the 2nd of May was the escalating prices in the shops of goods and commodities. And then on the 2nd, that's when Treasury then issued a statement to say that the tax on basic commodities was going to be removed. Talk to us about that, what the impact has been, and also the impact on both sides, on Treasury as well as the general public.
Okay, the intuition behind that move by Treasury of suspending duty on basic commodities, from the Treasury's end, they are trying to address this sort of as a shortage. So they're saying if we open the borders, we allow importation of basic goods so that we increase availability of goods and services in the economy, and this will also force domestic sellers who are more like some are trying to exploit the domestic, exploiting consumers. So if we free imports, it means we expose everyone to competition, so that to subdue prices. But also from the Treasury side as well, you see by suspending duty, there are so many challenges attached to that as well. For instance, one is like our industry, domestic industry, was already depressed by high inflation, forex shortages, So if we now open the borders, it's like we are now exposing our local industry to foreign competition. And this will go against the retooling which we have witnessed over these few years, where the estimates from CZI shows that about 70% of basic goods in shelves are domestically produced. So this measure is now sort of trying to go against the benefits which have accrued via increased industrial capacity utilization. And we can also take into consideration that by suspending duty, the government the treasury has forgone tax revenue, and this will have an impact on the tax collections and service delivery.
Again, on the second, there were some adoptions as well as some retentions, which I think are important that you explain what it is.
On the adoption, the treasury recently announced that they are now taking over, I think, foreign currency denominated RBZ debt. Here we're saying RBZ has been borrowing abroad from borrowers, lenders such as Afreximbank, buying essential commodities like supporting importation of fuel and other basic goods. So now the treasury is now assumed or taken over RBZ or RBZ debts. They are now being transferred from RBZ books of accounts to the treasury now, and now the treasury is saying it is now the sole responsibility of the Ministry of Finance to buy or to borrow on behalf of Zimbabwean government. By doing that, they're trying to ensure that RBZ, they clean the RBZ balance sheet so that the RBZ will now focus on its primary mandates, which is of maintaining price stability as well as stability of financial markets. On the retention side, John, the authorities have actually now removed retention on domestic forex sales. Here are saying all the foreign currencies are generated domestically through sales is no longer subject to RBZ retention measures. So here saying the move is trying to actually increase foreign currency on businesses.
That's Zvikomborero Spanda, an economist who is helping us to explain some of the measures that have been introduced by Treasury or the Ministry of Finance in order to stabilize our economy. So join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the second segment of Economic Forum, where we are discussing some of the measures that have been introduced by Treasury or government or Ministry of Finance in order to stabilize our economy. They were introduced on the 2nd of May and on the 29th of May, but we also looked at some of the past measures that have been introduced in the last 2 years and seen that there's been a lot of reacting to the situation on the ground, and doing that, explaining all these things and unpacking and simplifying some of these measures is Zvikomborero Spanda, who is an economist. You mentioned about debt assumption, which is something that Treasury or the Ministry of Finance has assumed. Are there processes towards that? Doesn't it have to go through Parliament?
Yeah. Ideally, that should be the process, and the minister should go through the parliament, should consult the parliament, and parliament must approve a debt assumption act. And also to go further, John, I would also expect to see some debt audits, so that we'll be able to ascertain between odious and illegitimate debts before we assume, because by assuming we are saying it is now the taxpayer who is taking over the burden.
And that can still be done in retrospect.
Yes, the minister can actually go and for approval from the parliament.
Let's look at some of the critical measures that were introduced on the 29th of May. One of the measures that we would like you to simplify is the funding of the Zimbabwean component, which is 25% of forex surrendered by the exporters. What would that mean?
This means that, let me explain before. Before, what was happening is on all export proceeds, 25% have been actually liquidated to the Reserve Bank at the foregoing interbank rate. So if you export, like let's take an example, in April this year, Zimstat statistics show that Zimbabwe exported about 555 million US dollars worth of exports. So of that 555 million, you're saying 25%, which is around 138 million US dollars, was to be ceded to the Reserve Bank at the going interbank rate. And using the April rate, you can see that it is actually, the Reserve Bank actually pushed or pumped more than 145 billion into the economy. So it was more like, this measure was more like, in as much as it was raising foreign currency for the government, it was also in creating excess liquidity in the economy. So now the Treasury is taking over that, say no, it's no longer, the RBZ is no longer the one which is buying that foreign currency. It's the Treasury which is now buying, so that we circumvent the issue of money printing in the economy.
I'm sure the Treasury's plate is going to be full very soon. Is it something that is manageable, or they will have to delegate other arms?
It's manageable, but my worry is normally Treasury operates through budget, through the national budget, and these funds, this takeover was not approved in the national budget, which was approved in November last year. But maybe the minister can come along with a new supplementary budget, as we are expecting mid-term budget review. Maybe that is where we are going to read some of this. But my worry is this sustainable? Will the Treasury able to fund these exports proceeds without jeopardizing service delivery and other developmental programs? So there will be competition for funds, and I think this will going to the Treasury will also need the central bank somewhat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing that has been coming up in all these measures, Zvikomborero, that have been issued by government or by the RBZ or by the Secretary for Finance, if it is not the minister, is to do with the local currency. That while people speculate that I think now government is going to say we are now back to US dollar, but government has been very consistent about the use of domestic currency. And again, in these measures, we see that being incorporated. Why has government been so consistent about our local currency?
Local currency, Johnny, is very, very key, because let me give you this. In economic management, we have the fiscal arm, where is the Treasury sitting, and we also need the monetary arm, where we are talking about the Reserve Bank of monetary policy. So fiscal policy, in any way in the world, fiscal policy needs to be complemented by monetary policy. So that's why you see the government continue to support, trying to support the Zimbabwean dollar, because the use of the monetary policy arm will help to navigate the current terrain. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So workers, again, the trade unions have been calling for salaries pegged in the foreign currency and so forth. And it's not something that has been readily accepted. Do you think with these measures it is going to be easy?
Since the beginning of this year, the local currency has lost more than 70% of its value in the parallel market. So this shows that the Zimbabwean dollar is no longer performing its function of storing value. So that's why I see, if now economic agents, whenever they earn in Zimbabwean dollars, they try to offload those in the parallel market. So the measures by the Treasury, the recent measures, they are trying to address Zim dollar use. Now that's why you see the Treasury has now said all parastatals, all government agencies must now accept payments in local currency. This will create demand for the Zimbabwean dollar. As we create demand for the Zimbabwean dollar, it will actually make it able to regain and sustain its value against the local currency. So in terms of payments of our employees, as long as the Zimbabwean dollar is stable, I don't see any reason of pegging or whatsoever. But the reason behind pegging, why they are calling for pegging, most of the people, is because the local currency currently is too volatile. You can't plan, John, with the currency which is losing almost every week. So that's why people are saying pay us more in US dollars. But once the government address the issue of volatility of Zimbabwean dollar, I think everyone will like the Zimbabwean dollar in as much as you hold US dollars.
That's Zvikomborero Spanda, an economist who is helping us to unpack some of the measures that have been introduced by government in order to stabilize our economy, most prominently being the ones introduced on the 2nd of May and on the 29th of May. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we are reviewing some of the measures that were recently introduced by government on the 2nd of May as well as on the 29th of May in order to stabilize our economy. And our guest here, Zvikomborero Spanda, has explained to us that government has been reacting to a number of on-the-ground issues, which is why they regularly have to come up with some of these measures. Now, let's look at some of the measures that were also introduced, especially the one of tracing gold, where it has come from, the source by Fidelity.
Normally, if you look, we are facing increased illicit financial flows, where we are talking about issues such as smuggling of gold. And government statistics are currently showing that Zimbabwe is losing about 100 million US dollars per month through gold smuggling alone. So here we're talking about illicit transactions. So the country, the nation is losing a lot of foreign currency which should otherwise be used for other productive purposes domestically. So now by introducing this system, the treasury is now trying to track issues around gold from production, marketing up until the last line of maybe selling. So here we're trying to reduce, to curb, they're trying to curb these illicit transactions such as smuggling of gold, so that we try to build our domestic gold reserves, and this will be used to support the Zimbabwean dollar. They'll also be used to use against whenever we face imbalances in the balance of payment. Here we're talking about issues of exporting and importation, as well as other unforeseen contingencies such as we witnessed cyclone Idai. We also witnessed so many cyclones, induced droughts. So these gold reserves, as we build them, they will be used towards those unforeseen contingencies as well as supporting the local currency. So it's a good move to me.
Does it mean that there were no measures before in order to trace where some of these minerals are coming from, in particular gold?
We cannot say there were no measures, but I think we can talk about lack of implementation, as well as trying to move along technology. Right now, we are now in the fourth industrial revolution. We are talking about digital revolution, where we are saying everything is now going digital. So we are saying also in terms of mining, let's also digitalize our mining sector so that we curb some of the leakages which cannot be seen by the human eye. So let's employ use of technology.
The measures also include the introduction of a 1% tax on foreign payments. If you could just explain what that means.
Foreign payments are all those foreign transactions which are done by Zimbabweans paying somebody not in Zimbabwe, so beyond our borders. So
including school fees.
Exactly. So you're saying someone is paying for school fees abroad, someone is paying even for healthcare costs abroad. You can also be paying for goods purchased abroad, such as maybe imports of industrial raw materials, whatever we buy outside. So those are foreign payments. So the government is now, Treasury is now introduced a 1% tax on those foreign payments. So to me, looking on this policy, I'm seeing the Treasury trying to reduce, non-essential importation of foreign produced goods. But to me, I think the minister should go further by putting some exemptions. We're talking, there are some critical inputs or critical payments, such as we've indicated, education, healthcare, even industrial raw materials. I don't think you have to pay a tax for importing raw materials to produce goods for Zimbabweans. So I'm looking forward to some exemptions on some key essential imports which we need to move the country forward.
As you wind up, Zvikomborero, let's look at sterilizing excess liquidity and tightening of the monetary policy. I think you've also spelled out some of the measures. Sterilizing.
By sterilizing, and I think that's one of the same point, it's like tightening the monetary policy. So by sterilizing, what they're saying is these are some of the interventions to try to correct the instability which has been already caused by excess liquidity due to government actions. So now by sterilizing, say the treasury is now going into the market, issuing treasury bills to try to mop some excess liquidity, and also roping in the central bank to also use its monetary policy tools to mop excess liquidity circulating in the economy. So I think this will be if fully implemented, I think this is the right call which will try to address excess liquidity growth which we have witnessed in the economy, which has been driving the exchange rate. If you look, John, the rate at which money supply is growing in the economy is not in tandem with the rate of economic activity in the real sector. So by tightening monetary policy and mopping excess liquidity, what the treasury or government is trying to do is to try to support the local currency against the Zimbabwean, the US dollar, and try to clamp price madness, which we are witnessing right now.
Zvikomborero Spanda, would like to thank you very much for all those points and all those facts and figures that you've given us.
Thank you, John.
Was our guest today on Economic Forum, and we have been discussing some of the measures that have been introduced by government in order to stabilize Zimbabwe's economy. If you'd like to get in touch with us on this program, you can do so on the numbers that are showing on your screen. You can also engage with us on the social media platforms that are also flashing on your screen. If you have missed some of the episodes and you'd like to view them, you can do that on our YouTube channel, which is Economic Forum Zimbabwe. So, on behalf of Zvikomborero Spanda, an economist, and the production crew, this is John Masugu wishing you happy viewing.